Visiem esiet sveicināti preses konferencē, kas veltīta NATO ģenerālsekretāra, Kanādas un Spānijas premjerministra vizītē Latvijā, tā skaitā arī Ādaži militārajā bāzē, kur šobrīd atrodamies. Sākam preses konferenci. Lūdzu vārds Latvijas ministra prezidentam Krišjānim Kariņam.
Paldies! Labdien visiem! Putina karš Ukrainā ir saliedējis NATO partneris. Šodien es gribu izteikt paldies mūsu partneriem, kas šodien ar mani šeit stāv, tātad Jensam Stoltenbergam, NATO ģenerālsekretāram, Justinam Trudeau, Kanādas premjerministram un Pedro Sánchez, Spānijas premjerministram par to, ka šodien bija iespēja mums visiem četriem šeit Ādašos tikties. Runā par to, ka NATO ir jāstiprina austrumu flanks. Un šodien es varu teikt, ka mēs redzam, ka šis darbs jau notiek. Tas notiek pateicoties tam, kad Kanāda ir jau pieņēmusi lēmumu un stiprina savu karavīru un tehniku klātbūtni tepat Latvijā. Tāpat Spānija ir pieņēmusi līdzīgu lēmumu un stiprina reāli ar karavīriem un ar tehniku, ar spējām. Tātad Latvijas karaspēks, Latvijas karavīri ir stiprināti pastāvīgi ar 10 vēl citiem NATO sabiedrotajiem, un vēl, kā mēs zinām, šobrīd Latvijā vēl ir papildus 11. Papildus spēks no Amerikas Savienotajām valstīm, kuri arī šodien mēs tieši redzējām militārās mācības, kas notiek procesā. Un mēs redzējām, ka Latvijas karavīri kopā ar Kanādas karavīriem, ar Spānijas karavīriem, ar vēl daudzi citu valstu karavīriem un ar ASV sabiedrotajiem kopā veica apmācības stiprināt, tai skaitā tieši Latvijas kā NATO dalībvalsts reālo aizsardzību. Mēs esam salīdzinoši maza valsts, bet mēs esam daļa no pasaules lielākās un spēcīgākās militārās alianses, kur mēs, saliekot plec pie pleca, esam nepārvarami. Bet šeit jāatgādina, ka mēs, Latvija, neesam tikai drošības patērētāji. Mēs reāli ieguldam un ieguldīsim arī savas valsts aizsardzībā. Mēs jau ieguldām vairāk kā 2%, un valdība jau ir pieņēmusi lēmumu ieguldīt 2,5%. Tātad mēs darīsim visu, lai uzlabotu savas reālās kaujas spējas, protams, arī mūsu spējas uzņemt un sadarboties ar aizvien lielāku skaitu citu NATO valstu karavīriem. Vēlreiz paldies jums visiem, Jens, Justin, Pedro, par jūsu klātbūtni un, protams, par to, ko arī jūsu valsts reāli dara, lai stiprinātu ne tikai NATO kā tādu, bet konkrēti arī Latvijas drošību. Paldies!
Paldies! Lūdzu vārds NATO ģenerālsekretāram Jensam Stoltenbergam.
Prime Minister Kariņš, Prime Minister Trudeau, Prime Minister Sanchez, Krišjānis, Justin, Pedro. It's great to be together with all of you here today. This demonstrates really NATO solidarity, that we stand together. Facing a critical moment for our security caused by the brutal invasion of Russia of a peaceful country in Europe, Ukraine. President Putin's war on Ukraine has shattered peace in Europe. It has shaken the international order and it continues to take devastating toll on the Ukrainian people. But Putin seriously underestimated Ukraine, and he seriously underestimated the strength and the unity of NATO and our friends and partners around the world. We have imposed unprecedented costs on Russia. We have stepped up our support for Ukraine, helping to uphold its right to self-defense. And we have implemented historic reinforcements on NATO's collective defense. With thousands more troops reinforcing the eastern part of our alliance, including here in Latvia. I strongly welcome that allies, including Canada, Spain and the United States, are deploying hundreds more troops to our multinational presence here at the Ādaži base in Latvia. So Justin, Pedro, thank you for your personal leadership and your commitment to our collective security. Canada has led NATO's battle group in Latvia for years with skill and dedication, a powerful demonstration of your commitment to transatlantic security. Spain is leading by example by deploying additional troops, ships and jets to strengthen our defensive posture in Europe. It was really an honor to meet your forces here today from both sides of the Atlantic. They represent the spirit of all our allies, all for one and one for all. NATO is a defensive alliance. We do not see conflict with Russia. Our ultimate responsibility is to keep our 1 billion citizens safe. This means we must do everything possible to prevent the conflict from spreading beyond Ukraine. And our presence here in Latvia sends an unmistakable message of unity and resolve. Our commitment to Article 5 of the Washington Treaty is absolute, and we will do whatever it takes to protect and defend all allies. So Krišjānis, Justin and Pedro, at this dangerous moment for our security, we stand united for our people and our values. Europe and North America together in NATO. Thank you.
Paldies. Lūdzu vārds Kanādas premjerministram Justinam Trudeau.
Bonjour tout le monde. Je suis très heureux d'être ici avec vous aujourd'hui. I'd like to first thank Prime Minister Kariņš. Thank you so much for your warm welcome, as well as we continue to strengthen the relationship between Canada and Latvia. Prime Minister Sánchez, Pedro, it's good to see you. I know how important the contribution of Spain is to the success of the mission here. NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg, thank you, Jens, for being with us today. It's extremely important. NATO truly is multinational. It was absolutely amazing to see the culminating military exercise of our troops from different nations, including those of Canada, Latvia, and Spain, training together. It was great to be here, and I'm also very happy to be joined today by Minister Anand, our Minister of National Defence, and the Chief of Defence Staff, General Eyre. We had a very productive day today. On top of my different bilateral meetings with Krišjānis, Prime Minister Kariņš, Prime Minister Sanchez, and NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg, I also met with President Levits of Latvia to discuss Ukraine and a broad range of topics. In addition, this morning, Krišjānis was able to organize that we were joined virtually by the Prime Minister of Estonia, Kaja Kallas, and the Prime Minister of Lithuania, Ingrida Šimonytė. We agreed to deepen the partnership between Canada and the Baltic countries, especially at this time of uncertainty. Ici au camp Ādaži, j'ai aussi eu la chance de rencontrer plusieurs membres des forces armées canadiennes et des autres pays de l'OTAN. Je les ai remerciés personnellement pour leur travail remarquable et leur professionnalisme. Last month, Canada announced the deployment of up to 460 members of the Canadian Armed Forces to NATO through Operation Reassurance. This announcement includes more troops here in Latvia, as well as the deployment of an additional frigate and maritime patrol aircraft. A total of 540 CAF personnel are now deployed here in Latvia, and approximately 130 more will join in the coming weeks. Well, today, I can further announce an early, multi-year renewal of Operation Reassurance to support NATO in Central and Eastern Europe. This mission was set to expire next year, and in light of the situation in Europe, we decided to renew it ahead of schedule. Operation Reassurance is the CAF support to NATO's assurance and deterrence measures. The troops here are not only defending Latvia or Eastern Europe, they're defending all NATO allies, including Canada. They're defending our freedom, and our security. That's why this work is so important, especially in the face of continued Russian aggression. Aujourd'hui, je peux annoncer que le Canada va renouveler l'opération Reassurance pour plusieurs années afin de soutenir l'OTAN, en particulier sur le flanc Est. On va continuer d'être là pour défendre la démocratie en Europe et partout dans le monde. Demain, je serai à Berlin, où je vais entre autres rencontrer le chancelier Scholz. Mais merci encore à nos forces de nous accueillir aujourd'hui. Today, in particular, during International Women's Day, I want to thank all the brave women who serve in the Canadian Armed Forces for their outstanding work, and all the women who serve in armed forces around the world. Canada will continue to be an ally and partner to help defend our shared values, and we will continue to be there for Ukraine. And now I'd like to turn the mic over to Canada's Minister of National Defence, Anita Anand. Anita.
Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. C'est un grand honneur pour moi d'être ici avec vous, avec nos forces armées canadiennes, avec le chef d'état-major de la Défense et avec nos partenaires, particulièrement cette journée internationale de femmes. Thank you, Prime Minister. It is an honor for me to be here, especially on International Women's Day. J'étais ici il y a un mois. I was here less than 1 month ago, and it is so good to be back here today to see the troops and to thank them for their service. My visit in early February and a number of engagements thereafter, including the recent NATO Defense Ministers meeting in Brussels, made clear that operations like Operation Reassurance represent the very best that NATO has to offer. This is the message that I hear in every meeting and continue to hear. In response to this message and to Putin's further aggression, we announced on February 22nd up to 460 more troops to NATO through Operation Reassurance, on top of the 500 already here, and the deployment of, as the Prime Minister mentioned, an additional frigate and a maritime patrol aircraft to reinforce NATO's eastern flank. Now, as the Prime Minister just announced, we are going even further. Today, we are renewing our support by extending Operation Reassurance mission 1 year ahead of time. This announcement reflects our deep commitment to the long-term security, stability, and interoperability of the NATO alliance. J'aimerais remercier nos forces armées canadiennes pour leur dévouement et de continuer de l'engagement du Canada en Lettonie pour le flanc de l'Est de l'OTAN et pour la sécurité, la dissuasion et la stabilité mondiale. I want to conclude by expressing my gratitude to our Canadian Armed Forces by continuing to put service before self and for continuing Canada's enduring commitment to Latvia, to NATO's eastern flank, and to our collective security at home and abroad. And I extend this appreciation to all who serve and who are here today. Thank you. Merci. Baldias. I now am happy to pass the mic over to Prime Minister Sanchez. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, my dear friends. As Prime Minister Trudeau said, today, 8 March, should have been a day of celebration of women and girls in Ukraine. Unfortunately, Putin's brutal aggression is forcing them to flee their country or fight for their lives. I would like to pay an homage today to all of them and reassure that we will stand by their side. I would like to thank the President and the Prime Minister of Latvia for organizing this visit. I am very happy to share it with my friend Justin, Prime Minister Trudeau, whose country commands this battle group, and with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. We are here to support our Baltic allies and friends in these very difficult times and to send a very clear message to President Putin. NATO allies are united, and the transatlantic bond is stronger than ever. I want to insist once again, our main commitment is with peace. NATO is a defensive alliance, as Secretary General of NATO has said, and all our actions so far are deterrence efforts to avoid confrontation. Spanish troops are the second largest contingent here in Ādaži's battle group, and I want to recognize our soldiers' dedication, solidarity, and professionalism. We are increasing our deployment with 157 additional soldiers, and we are also ready to fulfill our commitment through the graduate response plans. I would like to reaffirm Spain's unwavering support to Ukraine. We have delivered several tons of humanitarian aid and military equipment. Spain will also be up to the challenge that represents the dreadful humanitarian crisis caused by this terrible war, with over 1.7 million people fleeing their country. We will stay by the Ukrainian government and by the Ukrainian people to withstand Putin's unjustified attack. This is an act of aggression, not only to Europe's security, but also to what Europe represents, which is democracy, multilateralism, and freedom. Thank you.
Paldies. Mums ir laiks pāris jautājumiem. Sveicinu mēdīju pārstāvis, būs iespējas pacelt roku, un, ja ir jautājumi, tad lūgums arī iepazīstināt ar sevi un arī norādīt, kam jūs uzdodat jautājumu. Lūdzu, vai ir jautājumi? Es vienkārši jā. Lūdzu.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Murray Brewster with CBC News. Prime Minister Trudeau, allies have been shipping to Ukraine anti-aircraft weapons and anti-tank weapons. Canada sent anti-tank weapons. Both of those capabilities are in short supply in the Canadian military. The Canadian Army does not have a dedicated surface-to-air defense system. Will your government commit to an urgent procurement to cover those capability gaps, and will your government commit to meeting NATO's benchmark standard of 2% of GDP in defense spending?
First of all, we understand the urgency that is presented right now in the world, with Ukrainians standing strong against this illegal Russian invasion. And that's why we have sent aid, we have sent weapons, we will continue to send support to Ukrainians as they stand to defend not just their country, but defend democracy, defend the values that underpin democracy, and in fact defend us all. Those weapons are much more useful right now and in the coming weeks in the hands of Ukrainian soldiers fighting for their lives than they would be in Canadian hands. But of course, we need to make sure we replace those weapons rapidly and that we continue to invest in the equipment that leads our armed forces to be able to continue to contribute, not just in places like here in Latvia, but everywhere around the world where we are called on to do. I had an excellent conversation with Secretary General Stoltenberg earlier this afternoon, in which I talked about, indeed, our approach to continuing to invest in our military and making sure that Canada is always there to stand up.
En français, Prime Minister.
Nous allons toujours chercher à contribuer plus pour l'OTAN. Je pense qu'on voit à quel point c'est important d'être présent pour défendre nos démocraties, mais évidemment, les appuis qu'on envoie immédiatement en Ukraine, incluant des armes et des armements, sont utiles non seulement pour défendre l'Ukraine dans l'immédiat, mais sont en train de se battre pour défendre nos démocraties à travers le monde.
Oui, bonjour M. Trudeau, Laurence Martin de Radio-Canada. La Russie a réactivé plusieurs de ses bases de la guerre froide en Arctique. Et récemment, ils ont aussi fait des exercices militaires dans la région. Bon, vous annoncez aujourd'hui un prolongement de la mission ici en Lettonie, mais en Arctique, est-ce que vous pensez qu'on est vulnérable? Et est-ce que vous allez renforcer notre présence militaire là-bas?
ça fait plusieurs années qu'on est en train d'investir dans notre présence militaire partout dans le monde, mais particulièrement aussi dans l'Arctique. Mais sur ce point-là, ça me ferait grand plaisir de passer la parole à notre ministre de la Défense qui peut en dire plus.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Bien sûr, la souveraineté, la protection de notre Arctique, c'est très important pour nous. Premièrement, nous avons déjà signé un contrat avec Nato Corporation pour le North Warning System. Ça, c'est 600 millions de dollars. Et aussi, en même temps, c'est important d'avoir une option, une approche pour la protection renouvelable dans l'Arctique. Donc, pour ça, j'ai parlé beaucoup avec mon homologue dans les États-Unis et nous avons décidé de travailler ensemble pour la protection de notre continent et aussi de notre monde. Donc, le NORAD Modernization, ça c'est une chose très très importante pour moi et pour notre gouvernement aussi. Et nous allons avoir une approche robuste dans le court terme sur ça. Et ça c'est une chose très importante pour nous et pour le gouvernement du Canada. Merci beaucoup.
Es atvainojos, es varētu būt mūsu iespēju pāris jautājumiem. Vienam, vai kāds mēdījis no Spānijas? Jūs? Yes.
Yeah. Hello. So far, well, I'm Iñaki Aguado from Informativos, I think on behalf of all the Spanish journalists here today. So far the response through sanctions has not stopped Putin. What should be the path from now on? How far can NATO go? And how far can the European Union go as well? Do you consider the possibility of stopping buying oil and gas from Russia, just like the US has proposed? And do you think that Argentine gas could be a solution to supply all European countries? And Prime Minister Sánchez, as far as Spain goes, what steps are you willing to take to respond to the economic impact of the war in our country? Is it possible to use the loans of the next generation funds? And is it possible to lower fuel taxes? And we would be very grateful if we could have an answer in Spanish as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Iñaki, for your questions. First of all, I think it's crucial to be united. This is what we are showing today with the Prime Minister of Latvia, Prime Minister of Canada, Secretary General of NATO, Spain, and all the allies in NATO and the European Union. And that is why I think it's important not to, to advance different measures that we are going to debate in the Council in the coming days in Paris. But of course, economic sanctions is one of the most powerful instruments that we have in order to stop this terrible and unjustified war that Putin is, making against a free country such as Ukraine. Secondly, of course, I think it's very important to act regarding the economic impact in Spain and, of course, in the world economy and especially in the European economy. I think it's important to act in different dimensions. First of all, the multilateral dimensions, and here we have countries that belong to the G7. But of course, at the European level, I think it's important the communication that the Commission has released today regarding the energy policy, which is one of the major tools for the economic growth, and of course, it is already impacting this crisis on the energy prices. And of course, I think it's important also to have this unity among parties in Spain, and of course, this unity that we have shown with the trade unions and enterprises, first with the pandemic and the response, the economic response to this pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and of course, nowadays with this terrible and unjustified war led by Putin. So this is the question or the answer in English, and in Spanish I would say que creo que lo más importante es contar con la unidad de todos los países, de toda la comunidad internacional. Creo que la votación de la Asamblea General de Naciones Unidas que vimos hace escasos días demostró que Putin está solo y que todo el mundo, la mayoría del mundo, está con Ucrania. Y esa unidad se tiene que demostrar desde el punto de vista de las sanciones económicas, desde el punto de vista de la respuesta que tenemos que dar la comunidad internacional, aislando completamente a Putin, también en sanciones económicas contra él mismo y contra la oligarquía que ha crecido en torno a su régimen. Y por tanto me van a permitir que no adelante muchas de estas conversaciones que vamos a tener con los socios europeos en el próximo Consejo Informal dentro de escasos días en Versalles, en París, bajo la presidencia pro tempore de Francia de la Unión Europea. En segundo lugar, decirles que desde luego en el Congreso de los Diputados presenté lo que es el esbozo de ese plan nacional de respuesta al impacto económico que va a tener la crisis de la guerra de Putin en nuestro país. Hace escasos días, este pasado lunes, me pude reunir con los agentes sociales, sindicatos y empresarios para trasladarles cuáles eran las líneas de actuación que vamos a hacer desde el Gobierno precisamente para amortiguar el impacto que en el ámbito de los precios, tanto de la energía como también de las materias primas, va a tener esta terrible crisis. Que va a costar, sin duda alguna, pero mayor sería el coste si no actuáramos en contra de Putin, si no actuáramos en contra de quien ahora mismo no solamente está infringiendo la legalidad internacional, sino que está poniendo en cuestión y en riesgo la seguridad de todos los europeos, que es precisamente lo que venimos aquí a garantizar. Esa seguridad en las fronteras europeas, ya sea en Letonia, ya sea en Estonia, ya sea en cualquiera de los países del frente oriental de Europa. Y esa unidad de los aliados y esa unidad también de los europeos me parece ahora mismo trascendental. Y desde luego España, como he dicho en otras muchas ocasiones, va a estar donde debe estar y hará lo que debe hacer. Thank you. Gracias.
Mums ir laiks vēl vienam jautājumam vārds. Nē, es atvainojos, nē. Mums ir Latvijas žurnāliste Inês Razdiņā. Lūdzu vārds jums. Jā, mums.
Ines Razdiņā, Latvian television. Just very shortly, my question to Mr. Sanchez. You already mentioned that you decided to send more troops to Latvia. Could you please be a little bit specific about when they could arrive? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Actually, we've been committed with Latvia for long under the command of the Canadian Army. And we are going to deploy, as I said before, 150 new soldiers here in this base, and it's going to be very quick, very fast, since the NATO Secretary General and of course the Commander asked us to deploy as fast as we can these military units.
Paldies, un saprotu, ka mums ir vēl viens jautājums. Mēs varam paņemt vēl vienu jautājumu, lūdzu vārds.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Secretary General, what would NATO do if Vladimir Putin encroached on even 1 centimeter of NATO territory? And Mr. Trudeau, would you be willing to go to war?
We are here to deter any attack on any NATO allied country, and deterrence has helped to preserve peace for more than 70 years. Now we are stepping up to send an even stronger message to President Putin that an attack on one ally will trigger the response from the whole alliance. So we are here to protect every inch of allied territory of Latvia and all other NATO countries. And the purpose of that deterrence is not to provoke a war, but it is to prevent the war, it is to preserve peace. And when we see the aggressive actions of President Putin against Ukraine, it has led to a big reinforcement of our presence in Latvia and also in other parts of the eastern flank of our alliance. And I would like to commend Canada, Spain, and also Latvia as a host nation for really demonstrating unity, demonstrating commitment to our collective defense. And as long as we stand together, North America and Europe in NATO, we are all safe, because we are by far the strongest alliance in history, and the unity is much stronger than President Putin expected. He wants less NATO, he's getting more NATO. He wanted to divide us. He's getting a more united alliance. So we are here to preserve peace, prevent war, and that's the reason why we are increasing our defensive deterrence presence in Latvia and in the rest of the eastern part of the alliance.
Vladimir Putin made a terrible mistake.
Sound.
Vladimir Putin made a fundamental miscalculation. He thought Ukraine was weak, and he thought NATO was divided. He's been shown how wrong he is. Ukrainians are strong and courageous and standing up to defend their land. And NATO has never been more united and determined than we are now. And I know I can speak for all NATO members when I say we will all abide by Article 5.
Français, s'il vous plaît.
Je peux vous dire que Vladimir Poutine a fait une grave erreur en pensant que les Ukrainiens étaient faibles et que l'OTAN était divisée. Il a vu qu'au contraire, l'Ukraine est très forte et se bat avec un courage incroyable et inspirant. Et il voit aussi que l'OTAN est plus unie que jamais et déterminée à démontrer cette unité à tous les jours. Et je peux parler pour tous les membres de l'OTAN quand je dis que nous allons tous suivre l'article 5.
Paldies, mums laiks ir beidzies. Paldies visiem par dalību preskonferenci, mūsu laiks.